Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, Mysterious Voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today, I don't want to talk about a specific book, but rather I want to do the usual wrap-up and TBR, not only for a TBR for January, but also a TBR for the year 2024, like I did last year. Seems like a real good way to kind of mark out what I hope to read in the year and just hopefully set goals for myself. In terms of what I read for December, though, I didn't read too much. Again, I kind of set a hard break for myself where I would just, go do other things, go see movies, go play video games, see more of the world. Didn't really see much of the world because everything's kind of closed in the last week in December, but I still had a good time. And I do think there were a lot of good reads in 2023. Be sure to check out my best of video if you want to find out more. Behind me, you might be able to see something new there. There's you can only really see the top shelf, the Funkos, but it's a bookshelf. Finally bought and put it together because I had my books in boxes, which was fine, but the biggest problem is that it was kind of cluttering or slowly accumulating more space because I just have a lot of books, and this allows me to just have one centralized location, which is good. And then, I have a lot of stuff planned for 2024, which I'll get to in the TBR. But without further ado, we'll talk about the wrap-up and then the TBR, and we'll move on from there. So what did I read in December? In terms of books, I read Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. I thought it was good, much better than Words of Radiance, which felt very sparse. It felt like a retread of The Way of Kings, but Oathbringer kind of takes it forward into a new direction. Now that all the characters have powers, Sanderson is exploring those abilities, but he still has issues with pacing, which I don't think he's ever going to fix, especially when you're writing 1,200-page books. It seems like his goal is to write 1,200 pages rather than to write a coherent story. Times, and there's a bit of odd messaging in those stories too, especially when it comes to slavery and the morality of killing those slaves, even if they turn out to be world-ending type creatures or something like that. But it's that odd messaging that kind of hinders the story to a great amount. But it still feels epic and grand in that way. And then I also read Independence by Shitra Divakaruni, which I thought was great. Very fascinating mesh of Indian history, romance, and very strong emotions in that story. I put it on the best of list, and I feel like it's very well deserved, especially as we get further and further away from the story. It was extremely high quality, and I definitely recommend it if you haven't read it. I also read the Schopenhauer Cure by Irvin Yalom, which I thought was excellent. It was another best of contender, but I felt like it was too near the end of the year. For it to really make it onto that list, which is weird criteria to have, but that's my criteria. It's still very excellent. It's still something I'm going to be thinking about for quite some time, much like Fleischman is in Trouble, which was another high quality book, another Jewish book too. It really seems like those Jewish authors are knocking it out of the park for the most part. The Schopenhauer Cure meshed group therapy, psychology, existentialism together in a way that felt very unusual and experimental in that way. But Yalom managed to successfully blend all those ideas together. Even if there are a few issues with the story, they don't really shine through too much, and Yalom is able to elevate the story to where it needs to be. And it's something I'm going to be thinking about for quite some time. I also read a couple of short stories, The Burglar's Christmas, which I thought was fine, not really a lot to it, but it was a fun short story. The Incident on the Afternoon of November 3rd, which was a Japanese short story. I thought it was pretty good. Very, very interesting exploration of seeing the horrors of the world, sort of a loss of innocence or something like that. Definitely worth checking out. And then Fish Cheeks by Amy Tan, which was also good. Another exploration of culture there. And then I read a number of poems for the month of December. Be sure to check out my Poetry Thursday playlist if you want to find out more about that. But what do I plan on reading in 2024? Well, as well as in January. Well, first we'll start with the 2024 TBR. I feel like I made it through a good chunk of my TBR in 2023, and I feel like setting a list to a hard limit of 10 is a good idea. It's something I can jump off of. If I like this certain author, I can explore more of their work, or I can move on to someone who's adjacent to that author. Keeping it at 10, I ended up reading like 141-ish books, which was really cool. And I think the best of the list from last year was like The Violent Bear It Away and Fun Home, really good. And I didn't really like the Iliad. So I was going to read the Odyssey, ended up not reading it, unfortunately, because the Iliad kind of soured my taste. But I do still want to check out, ancient Greek literature, because I feel like that kind of writing isn't really something that I've experienced a lot of, so got to get more of that under my belt. But I did end up creating another list of 10 books, and so the list is as follows: Hamlet by Shakespeare. Again, I want to continue to read Shakespeare's works. And I've sort of read Hamlet before in high school, but not all the way through, kind of like a lot of other Shakespeare's plays, so we'll see how that goes. And then I do want to read another play. I should be reading more women playwrights, but I unfortunately don't have any on those on the list, and I will seek to remedy that. But another book on the list is Man and Superman by George Bernard Shaw. I ended up reading Pygmalion about a year or so ago. It's good. I read it in high school. It's a good play. But I wanted to kind of explore another type of play, and the one on my list is Man and Superman, which I don't know anything about, but the title sounds interesting, sounds strange, sounds perfect for this channel. Number 3 and 4 are actually Lucas recommendations from Strike the Sun MD. He told me I needed more Chinese literature, and I do agree. There's a lot of gaps in my reading, but for this channel, I feel like one of the things is like what I found on BookTube is I don't need to read every single genre. Like there's a whole bunch of niche booktubers out there. I'm my own niche as well, and those people are going to cover what they want to cover. Like even Lucas covers Chinese literature on his channel from time to time, so I don't have to feel any pressure to cover those things, but I will here. I'll try to do that more in an effort to get more, diverse reads under my belt. One of them is The Legend of the Condor Heroes by Zhen Yang, and the other is Red Sorghum by Mo Yan. Haven't read either of these, but I'm looking forward to seeing, what's what about them and how they hold up and other quality things about them. So be on the lookout for that. Number 5 and number 6 are books that have been banned. As you know, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I very much want to read banned books because anytime someone tells you not to read something is usually an incentive to read that book. And also, it's always good to ask why something is being banned. So number 5 is Lush by Natasha Friend. I found it on a list of frequently banned books. It's about alcoholism, and it's been banned in some high schools for the subject matter. And The Giver by Lois Lowry. I actually read Lois Lowry quite a bit in high school. I read the Anastasia and Sam books that she wrote, but I've never read The Giver. which is unfortunate, and I intend to remedy that. So we'll see what that brings there. And then number 7 is The Winter of Our Discontent by John Steinbeck. Again, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of John Steinbeck. Unfortunately, he has a limited number of books in his catalog. So I'm going to have to, I'm reaching a point where I'm going to have to, be done with Steinbeck because I've read everything that I can read from him. And I'm going to have to make one of those reflection videos of here's what this author was, kind of like what Lucas did over at Strike the Sun MD for a couple of authors. But I'm very much looking forward to yet another Steinbeck book. Number 8 is Hope Was Here by Joan Bauer. Again, another thing that I do pretty frequently is read the Newbery books, books that have won that sort of a medal award. And not only do I read the winners, but I also read the runners-up because those are usually a sign of at least the best literature for young adults. And again, it's always important to ask what like themes and stuff are being tossed at young adults. So be on the lookout for that. It's supposedly about a waitress or whatnot. Number 9 is a book that I've been meaning to get to for a while. It's War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Very much looking forward to seeing what Tolstoy has to say here. I've never read it before. I've heard a great many things, especially from the Codex Cantina and Lucas at Strike the Sun MD. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's actually in my January list, but I might not get to it. I might have to wait till February for that. And then number 10 is from another author that I've come to really love, John Williams, and I've read Stoner, which I consider one of the best books I've ever read, and Augustus, which was pretty good, but it couldn't hold up to Stoner. So I intend to read his book Butcher's Crossing, which is about a college graduate who moves out west in the old West days. And that sounds ripe for an interesting exploration of a great many themes. So we'll see what John Williams has to say there. And that's really the 2024 TBR. In terms of, what I intend to read specifically in January, as I mentioned before, War and Peace is on the list. But I also want to get through The 1,000 Crimes of Ming Su, which is a library read that I picked up. Preacher, another library read. It's a graphic novel. There was a TV show produced from it that ran for a couple seasons. And I've heard some interesting things, but we'll see how that goes. Some library reads that I pick up, of course. I bought Berserk Volume 8 because I want to continue through that series. A number of bookstore reads that I finally need to get through so I can eventually buy more bookstore reads because I try to stop myself, but I just seemingly can't because I have an issue. No, it's not wrong to continue to buy books. It's art. Art is fine. But 2 of the books that I got, at least recently, are the Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie. I read his short story pretty recently, or one of his short stories. And then Bunnicula. Quite a contrast there. But again, this is young adult fiction, and I always want to explore what authors have to say to young adults. But also, it's Bunnicula, which I feel a lot of people might remember from high school or middle school or something. Maybe older adults, because this is a pretty older story. I think it comes from like the 70s or 80s or something like that, which is really old. But it's still a pretty interesting story. So I'll probably talk about that on the channel here. And that's really what I have for books. In terms of short stories, I want to read something from Juan Rulfo, something from Philip K. Dick, as I continually talk about him on this channel. And then there's a bunch of books about black horror, or like a collection of black horror from authors like Jordan Peele, among many others. And this was recommended to me by my friend Bevan, which I'm going to do for Bevan Week, which is a week of reads specifically picked out by her, at least short stories and poems. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the the book club read, if I'm going to finish that, which is Rest is Resistance, which I forgot to mention. But be on the lookout for that, and then a number of poems, including one by Emily Dickinson, who I talk about a lot on this channel. But I realized I hadn't talked about possibly my favorite poem of hers, which I'll do in the month of January. But like it's very fascinating how I just glossed over this poem, even though it's probably one of the first I had in mind when I started the Poetry Thursday video kind of playlist. So be on the lookout for that as well. Anyway, that was the wrap up and the TBR for January, as well as the TBR for 2024. Lots of good books planned out and lots of good books that I have read. I'm very much looking forward to 2024. Hopefully it's a pretty interesting year, not filled with dreadful reads or dreadful events. If you have any books that you'd like to recommend to me or anything that you're looking forward to personally in 2024, whether it be books or just general things, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you and have a discussion, or just simply see a comment that you made that doesn't merit a reply or something like that. But other than that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this channel if they don't already know. And also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about books or movies or TV or whatnot. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and 2024 travels. Farewell.